On the night of November 15th, uptown Athens was abuzz with bar hoppers and partygoers filtering in and out of their favorite uptown businesses, such as the Union or Jackie O's. No one could have guessed that the face of Athens would be changed forever after a fire broke out on West Union Street, damaging 6 uptown businesses. No one was injured in the blaze, thankfully, but many lost everything in the apartments above. From the outside, the buildings may seem to be intact. However, as John Paszke, Director of Code, shows us in the special TGC News update, the reality is much, much different.
The fire on West Union Street that occurred on November 16th incorporated approximately 6 buildings in all. The first one that sustained very little damage would be at 10 West Union. That is the location of the Uptown Dog building. We currently have it off limits because of a potential hazard from the building next to it collapsing onto it. That building did sustain some damage to the rear of the structure from falling walls on top of it. The majority of the damage here has happened since the fire. This wall from that joint line there is collapsing this way. It's falling out towards us. So it's moved, we know, approximately 17 inches since the fire. 12 West Union, which would have been known as the Jack Neal Floral building, was a commercial on the first floor, and it had 2 floors of residential. That would be the old Victorian Queen Anne type structure that you see from the facade of the building. That building had 3 stories. The second floor is demolished. The third floor is not even there anymore. It totally burnt down and collapsed into the second floor. The next building would be 14 West Union, which was split commercial. One half of it housed the old Campus Sundry, which most recently just turned into Bobcat Rentals rental office. The other half was a smoke zone, smoke shop. There was one level of apartments on the second floor above that. And even though it's a 3-story facade, the third floor was a attic area, storage area, so to speak. So there were no bedrooms up there or tenants or rental units. And that unit is demolished all the way through to the first floor, with the exception of a little bit of the front of the first floor. 16 West Union housed the Kismet clothing store. That building is a total loss. The fire started actually in the rear of this structure as the point of origin in a storage room to the very back. Not within the clothing store, but in a little closet to the rear of it behind it. It had 1 apartment unit in it, which is obviously destroyed as well, since there's nothing left of this structure. 16 is masonry construction. It was built obviously much more recent than the rest, and it's on top of a steel frame. And as you can see, it's the one part that did not really burn, although it's lost the structural integrity because of the steel was twisted underneath of it. But I like to think that, you know, because of the modern construction, the masonry block, and that is one of the reasons it did not burn. I can tell you it looks like an oven inside of there. It's charred out. Everything inside of it is burnt to nothing, but as you can see, the structure still remains. Now that might be partly due with the fact that there isn't anything underneath of it either. So it's a parking area underneath, so therefore it didn't have the fuel underneath like all the rest of this did too. But the next building would be 18 West Union. That is the Union Bar and Grill. That building sustained damage to its roof. It is gone and been removed and is in the process of being rebuilt. And then it sustained also a lot of water damage. And then the last building that sustained any damage would be 22 West Union, which is a public house. The fire department had to do a fire cut trench stop in the roof of that structure to prevent the flames from spreading farther west into that structure, but it did sustain a lot of water damage as well. But they have reopened that structure. The reopening time of these buildings is really difficult to determine at this time due to various historic preservation grants and funding that may be available and different methods that we're looking at, as well as complying with zoning code. There are variances that are going to be required for these structures, and/or council may be making some changes to the code to help these folks out, but that's all still to be determined, and don't know which way that will go yet. 22 West Union, which is the public house, has reopened. 18 West Union, the Union Bar and Grill, they have submitted to the state of Ohio for their building permits to put the new roof on, and as well submitted to my office for a use permit to rebuild. So they should be underway here very soon and hope to be up and running before school starts beginning of next fall. The other structures, they could be down, obviously will be down through next year. I think all of them's hopes and intentions are to be rebuilt by the fall of 2016. And the Uptown Dog building, it is again not occupied at this time for fear of some damage or structure collapsing from 12 West Union onto it. There's a wall, the east wall of the 12 West Union building is leaning substantially and has collapsed into the 10 West Union building some already. So we're preventing them from going in to prevent any further damage or anyone getting hurt. I will like to note that the Uptown Dog building has moved. They've relocated temporarily across the street, so they are back in business. So you can find them directly across the street from the site. And the Jack Neal Floral building has also moved into the old church at the corner of College and State, so they're back in business as well. The demolition process on this is going to have to be a unified effort with all the property owners because of the intertangling of the debris of the buildings. So this will have to be a situation where they all work together. It's not a situation where one person can go in and say, I'm going to clear my building out, and the next person not be ready yet, with the exception of the Union Bar and Grill, because of a firewall that separated it from the rest of the fire. They have been able to proceed. Currently, city planner and the Historic Preservation Office, myself, and the property owners are working very diligently to try to save the facades of the building. We've been meeting with different entities at the Historic Preservation Office and the State Development Office. There's some tax credits that are available. Don't know what that'll be yet. There's still some information being gathered to answer those questions. But if we're able to save the facades, which is what we're striving to do, we will actually attack that, if that's the right word, through the alley next to Uptown Dog off of Union and come in behind their building, knocking down the walls kind of from the east side and removing the debris from the side. The alley to the rear is not large enough to get heavy equipment into to take the debris out, and obviously you don't want to go in through the front if we're trying to save the facade. So the point of attack would be through the alley. That entails actually removing part of the Uptown Dog structure. They have a little addition on the side of the building that we would have to, or the property owners would have to have removed in order to get the heavy equipment into the buildings to have them removed. And to make matters more difficult, 12 West Union, which is the first building that they would go through, has a basement. So that basement would have to be filled so that the heavy equipment can get across to remove the debris from the 14 and 16 addresses.
Thank you to John Paszke for giving us an inside look at the affected buildings. Stay up to date with the latest West Union Street news on the Government Channel. This has been Catherine Seyfried with TGC.